Hi, welcome to Blooms in the Yard. I'm Kate. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about vertical gardening, so how we can add more dimension to our garden by going vertical. I'm going to talk about trellises, some upright columnar plants and trees, clematis, and how we can build up areas with rock walls. So lots of fun things to talk about. I've built a lot of trellises. I'm going to talk about how I did some of those. And pretty soon I'm actually going to be doing a whole video about building a tuteur. So please subscribe if you're interested in that.
In this video, I want to talk about what a difference it can make when you use the vertical space in your garden. It's like you're adding another dimension. If you garden in a 10 by 10 space, then you have 100 square feet. But if you utilize your vertical space, then you have 1,000 square feet. That math works, right? I have a relatively small space compared to many suburban homes in the US. When I bought this house, I had it in my head that I didn't need a huge yard because the smaller it was, the more perfect I could keep it. Well, I haven't achieved perfection yet, so I guess I don't need any more space, but I think every gardener at some point thinks that they could use some more space. I don't have tons of space to plant in, but have you ever felt like you've used all of the usable ground space, but it still doesn't look full enough? What's needed is to utilize the vertical space. That's going to take layering. From ground cover to perennials, shrubs, and up to trees, we need to be thoughtful about how we can take advantage of the vertical space. This can be quite tricky because if you plant a huge tree, you may lose all of your sun in time, and even lose your plants due to root competition. One way to tackle this is to plant tall, skinny trees. Columnar-shaped trees and shrubs are becoming more and more popular and are getting easier to find. I have an Armstrong gold maple and the columnar Japanese maple in my yard, as well as 3 purple pillar Rose of Sharon. You can also limb up large shrubs into small tree forms so that you can plant below them. I am pruning and tying this variegated Virginia Prospect witch hazel so that it grows flat along the east side wall of my house. Its footprint is probably a half a foot of ground space, but I'm getting a lot of impact and interest out of it. The main way that I have found to really use vertical space is to grow vines on trellises. Over the last few years, I've built several because they're quite expensive to buy. The first trellis I built was to cover a large blank wall on the back of our house. The construction of this was pretty simple. I put 2 posts in the ground. I think I used 10-foot posts and put 2.5 feet into the ground and had about 7.5 feet above ground, and they are in concrete. Then I built a grid out of 1x2s and 2x2s. I stapled some wire fencing to the back. I think this wire mesh is a 2x3 rectangles. Once the frame was built, I simply screwed it into the 2 posts. The top piece is a 2x6. I cut angles on each end and screwed it into the posts. I've grown hyacinth bean vines and honeysuckle on this trellis. Have you heard the saying, necessity is the mother of invention? My biggest trellis was inspired by my neighbor's unsightly solution to keeping their dog in the fence. Unfortunately, it did not work to keep the dog in their yard, but they decided not to take it down anyway. So I decided to build a trellis as large as I could without making the area too shaded, and I didn't want to pay for a privacy fence. I used 4 4x4 posts. I varied the height because I wanted privacy, but I didn't want the whole thing to be 8 feet tall. I purchased 3 sheets of black plastic lattice that were 4 by 8 feet. I did not go with wood lattice because I was concerned that it would rot. I also purchased the black plastic frame for the lattice to slide into. The only other pieces are the 2x4 horizontal pieces at the top and bottom of the lattice. I started by cementing the 4 posts into the ground, and then I attached the horizontal bottom piece. I screwed the plastic frame pieces onto the posts and the bottom 2x4. I then attached the lattice to the top 2x4 before attaching it to the rest of the trellis. Instructions for this lattice say that it should hang and not be screwed into the frame all the way around, but only attached at the top. If I had to do this over again, I would attach it all the way around. I would not have it hang freely because strong winds blow the lattice out of the frame and it's a pretty big pain to pop it back into place. I now use some wire in a few places to keep it from blowing around so that it doesn't come out of the frame. Luckily, the wire isn't noticeable at all. I built a tuteur for our potager garden for our pole beans to grow on. I'm in the process of building a similar tuteur for our sun garden. I want to paint it, although I'm not sure what color yet. So watch out for that video soon and subscribe if you want to be sure not to miss it. Earlier this year, I decided my grapevine needed something with more presence to grow on. Here you can see that it had been growing on a pretty flimsy metal trellis since I planted it a few years ago. I've wanted to do something to add interest to this window for a long time. I went through many ideas. Originally, my plan was to have these ladder-like pieces be perpendicular to the wall and not flat against it. But I had plants in the way of where it would need to sit on the ground. And this has actually worked out much better because it takes up less space. I needed to tweak my design a little to make sure that it would hold up the large grapevine. I was trying to decide if the supports should be on the outside or the inside in these pictures, but in the end I realized that I just needed 2 supports on each side for it to look right. And this is probably best to give it plenty of support as well. I have been patiently waiting for the treated wood to dry out, but this week I was finally able to paint the top. My husband's only stipulation to this project was that I caulk the top to prevent our siding from rotting. Then I painted with a tinted outdoor primer. I very gently removed the vine from the trellis. The final color matches our front door and our garage door. Here's the before of our side yard when I had just covered it with cardboard and mulch and was starting to think about planting. And then here you can see what the side yard looked like just before we put up the new arbor and that the wall looked pretty bare. And then finally with the grapevine, the area is starting to look full and like I feel like it should look. No vertical gardening video would be complete without mentioning Clematis. The thing about Clematis is you can literally squeeze one in anywhere. They want their roots covered up by other plants, so as long as you give them something small to grow on, then you have the space to add another one into your garden. Last year, I ordered 4 Clematis from an online store, and afterwards I was like, what am I going to do with these Clematis? But when they came, and I started thinking of places to put them, I was like, wow, I could get 4 more because you really can put them in anywhere and add vertical interest. Clematis and other climbers give you the ability to cover utilities and other ugly things in your garden without taking up a ton of space. Skinny spaces benefit the most, I think, from adding vertical elements and layers. Layering is important in any garden, but I think it's even more crucial in a tight space. You just need to be very thoughtful about how to accomplish it. Any bare railing is an opportunity to add another clematis or some other climbing vine and add more interest. I also add little rock walls around my garden to add some elevation change. To me, there's nothing worse than just a completely flat garden, and maybe it's because it reminds me too much of the dry, flat desolation of western Kansas. Whenever I have a little bit of extra soil, I take the opportunity to build up another area, and then I can add a little rock wall around it. Look at this little area on the west side of my house. In this space, I not only built about a foot tall rock wall, but then I also put a headboard, and I'm just getting higher and higher, going more vertical.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video was helpful and fun for you to watch. If you are gardening in Kansas, I feel for you. I know that we have a lot of struggles enjoying kind of meeting people through the comments online. So if you're in the area, give a shout out. Feel free to say hi.